connected to the cash bone!
Alright, today we are going to be starting our next chapter, which is on the skeletal system, which I have casually titled Bones back in 2017. So, we are vertebrates. We are supported internally by a skeletal system. Our skeletal system is pretty much homologous to every other vertebrate mammal. The layout of our bones has just changed a little bit from one mammal to another mammal. Minor changes. So our skeletons are noteworthy in that they are a part of us that lasts a very, very long time. In cities that have been around for thousands of years, people have to figure out, well, what do we do with these human remains after no one comes to view them hundreds of years after the person has passed? In some cities, they are arranged into catacombs, like in Paris.
Cash!
Oh, that's not what I wanted.
Take it home with a varietal bone. It might be crazy, but I learned that way. Temporal and frontal too.
I'm just going to link this because it's too long. Alright, so we're going to get into the note portion of the notes now. We are going to start with basic bone information if you want to make that a large title heading. I will be posting the slides at the same time, so if you want to work directly from the slides, that is probably an easier thing to do than to try to keep pausing this video. So, we're going to start with the tissues of bones, which seems appropriate since you should have just finished your tissue test. So, there is, of course, bone tissue we have here. There is then cartilage. There is dense connective tissue. There is blood, and there is nervous tissue. Your bones are quite a bit more than just mineral deposits. They are living tissues. So your bones have a variety of functions. They support, they protect, they serve as attachment for muscles, they house blood-producing cells, they store inorganic salts. So, your bones obviously support you. I am standing right now because my bones are physically supporting me. They protect in a variety of ways. A skull has very obvious protection. A rib cage has nice, obvious protections. Your spinal cord is protected within your vertebrae. It serves as attachments for muscles, which I don't think has been illustrated better by anyone than Harry Potter.
Not to worry, Harry. I will fix that arm of yours straight away.
No, not you.
Oh, he doesn't know what he's saying. Now, this won't hurt a bit. Brachion. Emendo.
Yeah, without bones for our muscles to attach to, our muscles are kind of pointless.
You can no longer feel any pain. And very clearly the bones are not broken.
Broken? There's no bones left.
Much more.
So your bones are housing your blood-producing cells. Your blood is produced within your bone marrow. It also stores inorganic salts, chiefly calcium, some sodium and some potassium as well are stored, which are necessary ions for the functioning of your nervous system. So we are now going to go through some types of bones. Bones can be classified as long, short, sesamoid, flat, and irregular. So long bones have a long longitudinal axis. So I have here a human humerus. This humerus would be an example of a long bone. It has a long longitudinal axis. The bone of a classic skull and crossbones is going to be a long bone. So the examples of this are going to be the tibia, fibula, the femur, the metatarsals, the phalanges, the humerus, the radius, the ulna, metacarpals, and phalanges. So all of the bones in red. It is a good portion of your skeleton, most of your appendicular skeleton. Next, we are going to get to short bones. So your short bones, they're short. Their length and their width are quite similar. So I have here a hand and wrist. All of these little bones, the carpals of your wrist, they are short bones. They're going to have unusual shapes. They're going to be rather difficult to recognize out of context. Carpals and tarsals, your patella are, but they're also a sesamoid bone, which we'll get to very shortly. Speaking of sesamoid bones. So sesamoid bones are rounded and they're embedded in a tendon. You have two noteworthy sesamoid bones. Your kneecaps, your patella, are sesamoid bones. These bones are embedded within tendon. You have many other small ones in other joints. It varies based upon your individual genetics. So if we take a look here, different people have sesamoid bones in their hands and their feet at different probabilities. We almost all have some in our thumb here. Most of us have them here. Low percentages there. Same with your feet. There are some places where we almost all have some little sesamoid bones and some places where they're a bit more rare. But they do exist. Next, we come to flat bones. Flat bones, as the name says, they tend to be kind of flat. They are thin with parallel flat surfaces. Bones of the skull. So, the bones of the skull are flat. There are two parallel surfaces. The ribs, the scapula, and the pelvis. The pelvis is the one that seems the least flat-like to me, but it is classified as such. Finally, we get to the irregular bones because we got tired of coming up with classifications of bones and we lumped them all together, like someone who was lazy doing their homework. So your vertebrae and your facial bones end up being irregular. So vertebrae and the facial bones, which are separate from the cranial bones, are surrounding the brain. So we're going to go through the parts of the bones, and then that will be the end of this for today. So this is your next big title heading. So this is going to be parts of mainly long bones is what we're going to be talking about. So long bones are going to have what we call a epiphysis, which I have a very hard time saying. That is the two larger ends of the long bone, which are larger. At this point, we are going to form a joint. So we have a ball and socket joint of my humerus in my arm here. We have a hinge joint down this end. It's a little broken. So there are two of these. So you have a proximal epiphysis. It's closer to your torso. You have a distal epiphysis. Is further from your torso. So this ball and socket would be proximal. This would, of course, be distal. So this will be coated with haline cartilage called articular cartilage. So when we say articular cartilage, that is haline cartilage that is just in a joint capsule. So the cartilage covers the moving part of the joint. So it is one of the friction reducing measures that exists within a joint. Next, we have the diaphysis. This is the shaft of the bone. It is the skinny part of the long bone, easy to recognize right in the middle. Then there's a metaphysis, which again, I have a very hard time pronouncing. And it exists between the diaphysis and the epiphysis. We have this little area where the bone is starting to flare out. It's not reached the part that's forming the joint, but it's definitely not the part that is still skinny. On the outside of a bone, there is a periosteum. This covers the bone except for the moving part of the joint. So it covers everything that's not covered with articular cartilage. This is going to be a vascular tissue. So it has a blood supply. It is tightly bound down to the bone. So this layer is tight down to the bone. It is vascular. It helps repair bone tissue if it is damaged. So a few other parts that come up. So you need to know the word process. So a process is a bony projection attached to attach a ligament and tendon. So here we have a vertebrae. It has a spinous process for attaching ligament so that muscle can control this. Here we have your zygomatic process. Again, it is an attachment point. This is just two examples. Many, if not most, bones will have something that is called a process. I will point out here that we can see the vertebral foramen here. This is the hole that your spinal cord would go down, which would provide it a layer of protection. So it is protected within bone. So bones are going to have grooves and openings. So I showed you this when we were last together, but I found it on this bone. I'm gonna try getting real close and hope my camera focuses okay. But there's a little opening there into this bone. These are passages for blood vessels and nerves because your bones are vascular. They have blood supply. They are producing blood cells. We, or at least I, when I was younger, often thought of this as sort of just dead mineral tissue. It is a living tissue that is constantly being remodeled throughout your life. So in the middle of a long bone, there will be a medullary cavity. The medullary cavity is a hollow chamber. It is going to contain marrow. So your bone marrow is housed in the medullary cavity, which is in the middle of a long bone. So there's a little bit more on bone structure we want to go through, which is types of bone. So the bone that you have been looking at, the one that you had to ID for your test, was compact bone. This makes up most of the diaphysis. So this is osteons clustered around central canals. So the canals run longitudinally, they run the length of the bone, and they house blood vessels. Our other type of bone is spongy bone. So I showed you where this bone was broken, we can see the spongy bone, and we can see the compact bone on the outside. So there are many branching bony plates called trabeculae. Empty space reduces weight. If we go to something like bird bones, they have this even more exaggerated, which provides or even makes their skeleton even lighter than ours. So that is going to do it for today. So if you made it to the end here, thanks. Hope you have your test done. If you have any questions, please email. Have a good day.